Hello, welcome back to Blender Sushi Live Noding. In this episode, I'm going to show you this simple setup. You probably have seen me doing something like this, but I kind of want to incorporate this Voronoi cell fracturing. So, of course, you can tell already the growing pattern, which is pretty kind of like random, but still kind of looking nice. That's actually being achieved by using like this time frame that's being offsetted by this range float, and then I pipe this into map range, and each and every single one will grow over 30 frames. And also I have another bonus here. Once it's finished growing, we can actually extrude it up this way. So if I make this 1 and 1, we can get this kind of design. So yeah, I guess it's pretty cool. It's rather simple actually to set up, but I will show you anyway. So just like a kind of like an exercise. So I'll reload a new file, okay, and save it as flat Voronoi Extrude, and I will be using Sverchok. For the Voronoi thing, it's totally up to you what you wanna use, whether it's like a grid or like a circle, or even if you can draw it using grease pencil. Maybe that's for the next live noding. I might be using just grid for now. So grid, of course, by default, it has I think 9 by 9, so it's 81 kind of points. I'm gonna save this. Since Blender doesn't have a Voronoi Modifier and Sverchok doesn't have Voronoi Node yet, we can use the Cell Fracture add-on. It comes with any Blender installations. Just enable this in the preferences, and with anything you selected, whether it's like a 3D mesh or flat 2D like this, you can kind of fracture it. Simply tap spacebar and then Cell Fracture, and you have a lot of setting here, and feel free to try it. But for this one, we just use on vertices, which means this object will be using its own vertices to do the Voronoi fracturing. And I'll keep everything as it is. I think, yeah, just keep everything on the default. But we also have grease pencil stuff, so can be interesting, this cell fracture. So just do it and then wait for a few seconds. And this add-on will try to fracture our plane into multiple objects. Hopefully this guy works. Let's wait a few seconds. I think it's kind of working on it. The nice thing is this guy have like a progress kind of setup. Screen area not. Okay, I supposed to stay in the Blender windows, I guess. But anyway, it saves the fracture on layer 2. That's what I thought. That's okay. Seems to be it's fracturing based on the grid actually, which is interesting. It doesn't actually give me the Voronoi fracture. Very interesting. Okay, I'll probably try again. Maybe I should have randomized the cell somewhat. Well, and I guess I can use a particle system now, like make it like 80 particles and try doing it again. Cell fracture, use its own particle system, and just keep everything the same. Fracture. Just wait a few seconds. Yeah, I found this add-on is very interesting. So I just wish we have something like this inside Sverchok, and we can kind of see the final result before we hit the process. So hopefully we get something more interesting now. There you go. Actually, the self-fracturing result is happening on layer number 3. Number 2, what is number 2? What we need really is the one on layer 3. So I'm gonna save this. So I think I will just select all of them and then Control G, save it into a group, and I'll go to compositing and switch to Sverchok. This is gonna be our reference objects. If you look at it in the outliner, we have like a bunch of objects. Maybe it's a good idea to just parent them under like a locator, maybe. Anyway, we're gonna switch to Sverchok right away, and using objects in MK3, I will load this guy simply by loading the group, get selection, and now we have this how many? 81, I think 81 objects maybe. We can actually switch to another layer and kind of check this out real quick. Okay, that's if you just plugging in the data like this, you get this all these Voronoi faces on top of each other. But if you use the matrix transformation, which is the transform of each object, you get the nice Voronoi pattern objects. So they are all like separate objects, but you can easily merge it inside Sverchok if you like. It's totally up to you. For now, we're gonna play around with the matrix. So we're gonna use matrix deformation here, and we're gonna scale it. So you can do a lot here, not just scaling. Like scaling thing is the fun thing you can do, of course, but you can also kind of randomize the location a little bit. Let me think. I think if we just plug in a random vector, everything will be in random position. So you probably don't want that too much, but actually this guy actually with matrix deform, it remembers the original position, so that's why you can kind of simply just break the objects like that. So that's yeah, that's kind of useful in itself. So exploding and then back to original position. So that's very cool. There's a lot of effects simply just by using this. So you can scramble it. I'll just keep this random vector, and then angle and rotation. You can play with it, but what we really want is the scaling. Okay, let's try with the scaling first. I think vector in on a location is also this can be useful as well if you randomize the one of the value here. Float 80 different value and randomize the seed. You can kind of play with this idea, you know, like if you have like these objects kind of like scrambling and but they're all falling into place. It's kind of like a neat kind of effects. So I'm gonna keep that as well here. But what really interesting, of course, is the scaling. Yeah, this classic effects. You just need to give it something like this. So alt mean maybe 30 frames. So for each pieces, it will take 30 frames, and it's gonna go from value 0 to 1. Plug this into the XYZ of the scale, and now all we need to do is just to provide a random value for this value here. For that, we can use frame info. If you plug in the evaluate into this value, what's going to happen is depending on the range of the timeline here, from the 0 to 250, it will grow. I think, yeah, you see, if it's like between 0 and 1. Anyway, that's not what we want. We want like 30 frames here, and then time frame goes into the value, but you want to randomize the time frame, so we just use math and randomize this guy simply by using random number between maybe float. I think I'm actually using like range float at some point. Random number will work as well. Let me try minus 100 and minus 50. Random number, plug into this guy, and now we can see. We'd give it like a 80. Same with this guy. So this is with a random value scaling. You can see the effects. This will actually work with a 3D Voronoi as well. It's just much simpler to look at it as 2D. And you don't need to use grid. You can use anything. Maybe like a shapes of text, for example. And Voronoi is always give you this kind of interesting result right away. You can of course use range float as well, maybe between minus 100 and 0. Plug this into this guy. So now we have the effects that's more or less like one after another. That's slightly different. So yeah, a lot of choice here, a lot of things you can do. So that's for the scaling. Rotation and angle, I'll just leave it to you. That's you might be able to do like a flipping kind of animations. Yeah, for the next step, actually, if you want to do the extrusion, you can easily do that. First of all, I think I will merge all this separated Voronoi polygon face. I'm going to use mesh join perhaps. First of all, matrix apply. Matrix apply vertices. So this guy goes in there, goes in this to this guy, and polygon edges goes into this guy. Now we have a single single mesh object. If I bake this is like a single object, but of course they are still all separated. I can actually use a smooth, you know, can get that kind of design. If you want like a proper merging, you need to use a remove double here. This goes in there, this goes in there, this goes in there, this goes in there. And bake it, and you should get a almost proper. Maybe just a little bit. Bake it. Yeah, I guess that's a little bit better. I think increase this a little bit more. I'm holding shift and then kind of increasing this distance. Probably we'll never get like a perfect kind of merging, but anyway, we can now use the extrude separate faces, polygon to polygon, and then extrude it up. Yep. So you have this this kind of thickness. And if you want to randomize the height or randomize the scale, you can. And randomize the height. Random number generator, we know we have 80 because it's based on the particles. We have 80, so plug this guy in there. You can now randomize the height, and there you go. Very easy, very basic, and you can get this kind of design very easily. The only things that's not procedural here is the cell fracture thing. So you have to go back and kind of rerun the process. The cell fracture itself is kind of procedural, but it's more like a once-off thing that you do at the beginning, and then you can't go back and then make changes. Yeah, but anyway, I guess this can be kind of useful. Maybe with some kind of clever setup, you can kind of go around the limitations of cell fracture that once-off pass. But anyway, with a cell fracture, you can easily get this kind of design. Yeah, it's like a Voronoi thing. Once Blender have a Voronoi modifier, I think we can do this in much more elegant way, and we can always make changes to the Voronoi settings, and then we get a different result faster. So yeah, hopefully you find this useful. Let me know if you have any feedbacks, any question in the comment section below. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next video.